Thank you guys for coming to listen to this. We're going to talk about communication competence, being able to effectively communicate. I brought little flyers in case you guys can't see the video if you want to pass them out. It just has everything that's in here. So one big thing that a lot of employers are starting to realize and have a problem with is that people are not able to effectively communicate. There's a lot of problems in jobs with people not knowing how to talk to each other, a lot of miscommunication, things like that. Not even in the workplace. It can be here at church, you know. You go to talk to somebody about a job that you're supposed to be doing, or you're supposed to be working as a group, and there are people that just, you cannot communicate with them, or things get mixed up and you have problems talking about it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. There are two different parts to being able to effectively communicate. One of them is nonverbal. We're going to talk about that first, and then in our second part, we're going to talk about verbal communication. Not that verbal is any easier or better, but it's easier to talk about it better. So the first part of nonverbal communication is going to be your first impression. When you walk through those doors, somebody is going to be making a judgment of you. Usually people discuss or decide how they feel about you within the first 2 seconds of seeing you. Most of the stuff that I got for this is out of my textbook. So your first impression is what you're going to look like. Your hygiene, so if you shower, you don't shower, things like that are really important. And part of that is also what you're wearing. You can see I put a little man in a suit. This flowers, you sent boys on missions. Did they request any specific color of suits?
Darker ones.
Darker ones. Because the darker your clothes, the more power people think you have. So when you wear, even women, if you wear dark suits, dark pants, dark skirts, make sure they hit the knee because anything shorter does not look professional. They're going to perceive that you have more power. And then your hygiene. For women, it is important to wear makeup. If you're going to a job interview, whether you want to wear it for your job or not, wear makeup. For whatever reason, you look better. People think you're more competent if you wear makeup. And then last one on here is your confidence. Now, on page 42 of my little book, it says, the better the posture, the more confident you appear. At one time, so there's a thing on YouTube that talks about a power stance. Has anyone ever heard of the power stance? You know what it is? It's where you stand. You can either stand like feet together, usually it's feet hip width apart, and you stand with your hands on your hips. And you stand. They talk about if you're doing a presentation, if you're going to be in front of, or if you have an interview, if you have a important meeting, if you have something you're nervous about, stand in front of the mirror for a couple minutes. Just look at the mirror, stand there, and think, I am powerful, I am confident, I am capable, different things like that. Boost your self-esteem. You don't feel like it, pretend. Because the more you pretend, the more you act like you are powerful, that you are confident, the more confident you'll become. The next one, motivation. This is kind of a big one about being for communication. So, how you feel. If you're not feeling good that day, you're not going to be able to communicate very well. If you have a headache, then often it's harder for you to communicate, for them to understand you, because you're not feeling well. You're not, sometimes, I know I get a headache, I don't think clearly. That really makes a big deal, changes how you're able to communicate. Another one is if you're hungry. That you can see definitely in our teenagers. If you're hungry, you're not going to communicate. If your stomach's growling, then you should probably stop and do something before you go to that job interview, before you go to that meeting, because you'll be grumpy and not be able to communicate effectively. And then current attitude. That one's kind of important. It goes back to the defense, the power pose. I didn't really notice or know this before, but after reading in our book, that attitude, normally you think of it as the way you talk. Attitude was originally referred to as your posture. how you stand, and particularly a defensive posture. So if you think about attitude, think about being in charge, because that will really make a difference. Knowledge, how well you know what you're there for makes a difference in how well you're going to be able to communicate. If you know nothing about the subject, how are you going to talk to somebody about the subject? How you say something also can be just as important as what you say. So the sarcastic comments probably should be left to your friends, not in the middle of an important meeting. And then the next one I have in nonverbal is to know what's important, what's appropriate. This one can be very easy to talk about. It can be very hard to do. The big things in knowing what's appropriate is knowing who to talk to, when to talk to them, and where to talk to them. So if you know, if you're in a leadership position and you have information about somebody else that's under you that really shouldn't be told to anybody else, very delicate, you probably shouldn't be talking about it in Walmart with your best friend. Even if you're in a corner talking quietly, you never know if somebody's coming around the corner that shouldn't know that information. So that kind of fits into all of them: when, where, how. Just keep those confidential things confident, because what you say will come back. People will hear about it, and if you're saying and talking about things where you're not supposed to, then you lose credibility in the eyes of everybody else around. You're not going to be seen as being very competent. And that is the end of our verbal, or non-verbal.